Hello, and welcome to the Kingston Grammar School podcast. With the school motto of work well and be happy ever present in all aspects of the curriculum and co-curriculum, Kingston Grammar School is one of the most successful co-educational schools in the UK. I'm your host, Shannon Delwish, and regardless of how you came to find us, I hope you learn a bit about Kingston Grammar School while you're here. And I know that as one of our listeners, you will quickly start to feel more a part of the inclusive KGS community. Pull up a chair, we're happy to have you. In this episode, Headmaster Stephen Lehec welcomes Casey Beckford, Race Equality Ambassador at KGS, and Sarah Humphrey, Deputy Head Pastoral, into the studio. The focus is EDI, or Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion, within Kingston Grammar School and its significance beyond the school walls. Now, before I hand over the reins to Headmaster Stephen Lehec, I want to give you a little bit of background on me. You might gather from my accent that I'm not English, and that's true. I was in fact brought up in America, although I have lived in London for over 15 years. I'm white, but like most Americans, my background contains a mixture of ethnicity that includes Italian, Irish, and Native American roots, amongst others. I grew up in a suburb of Detroit in Michigan and was fortunate to be surrounded by diversity all through my school years. I guess I'd consider myself to be one of the more privileged students at school when I was younger, but when I went to university, I was in a different category, which was financial assistance. I went to a private university, and although there were a fair number of other financially assisted students, it seemed to me as though everyone else came from huge socioeconomic privilege that affected the way we socialized, the way we studied, shopped, worked, spent our holidays, pretty much everything. So just as our differences mustn't hold us back, it's important to acknowledge them and to celebrate them, really, just as the KGS community is making it a priority to do.
Hello, I am delighted today to be able to be exercising a little bit of a KGS podcast takeover. You would have heard the introduction, the sparkling tones of our producer, our podcast guru, Shannon Delwish, who would have introduced you to today's topic, but she's letting me conduct some of today's conversation because actually it's something that's close to all of our hearts. And I'm joined today by two key members of staff in the field of KGS EDI. We're going to unpack what that is. I've got with me Sarah Humphrey, I've got Casey Beckford, and they are two amongst a number of staff that we could have had with us today to talk about the issue of equality, or as some people say, equity, diversity, inclusion, and what that means. And we're going to kick off with just introducing ourselves, so why are we interested? So I am now a middle-aged white male, stereotypical kind of leading independent grammar school in southwest London. However, my background growing up, very different, far more diverse area in West and South London, before I went off to university with lots of like-minded people, and then worked across the country with lots of other like-minded people, and then came back to London where it was even more diverse than the London I'd left. And so for me, it's kind of crucial as somebody who perhaps seemingly represents one portion of the population to actually stand up and say, let's support lots of different faces and voices within our population. So that's me.
Hello everybody, my name's Sarah Humphrey. Some of you will know me, have seen me in my pastoral role, but I think in this role, one of the reasons I wanted to get involved is that I've got a background that probably not a lot of people would know about. I was actually born in Uganda in East Africa, where my parents were working in the development sector in the 1970s, but we came back when the political situation really imploded there. So for me, whilst I then lived in North Manchester and went to a very sort of standard grammar school, actually my home life has been quite eclectic, and I've travelled a lot and been back to the hospital I was born in. So for me, this is something I'm quite passionate about.
Hello everyone, I am Casey Beckford, design and technology teacher. I'm half black, half white, half English, half Jamaican. Both of my parents are also half English and half Jamaican. So I guess not that traditional half black, half white, having a white parent and a black parent. So I think in that respect, my growing up has been slightly different as well. I grew up on an estate in Battersea up until the age of about 8 years old, lived in a council house, didn't come from sort of a middle-class family that was wealthy or anything like that. So for me, I'd say that it was challenging in some ways, sort of understanding what I could go on to do. I remember having a conversation with a secondary school friend about university, and I just brushed it off as that wouldn't be something that would be possible for me. But, you know, it happened, and now here I am working at Kingston Grammar School. And, you know, as an 8-year-old child, or even being 13 or at secondary school, this would have just not occurred to me as, something that would be possible in my path.
Thank you for allowing us to put you on the spot with that about your background, your journey, your passion. I'm going to put Sarah on the spot a little bit because we talk about the 9 protected characteristics. We're focused in school on racial discrimination, gender discrimination, harmful behaviours, sexual orientations, disability awareness. Which do you think is the most prevalent issue? Which is the one you're most passionate about in supporting our children at KGS?
That's a really tough one, that actually, because this academic year we've worked on 3. So I've worked a lot with Casey on some issues to do with race, and then I've worked with a group of really passionate sixth form students about the issue of gender-based violence, and that's quite a tough topic to deliver to students as well. And then I've worked a lot with Kes Tamblin on the issues of LGBTQ plus rights and sexuality, and I'm just starting a piece of work with a boy in the upper 6 who's about to leave on disability awareness. The way we've tried to do it at KGS is try to link it to big national campaigns, which has given us a little bit of an anchor. So we're able to say, look what we're doing nationally, and then we're going to do some things in school. So Casey actually booked a really amazing group of ex-professional footballers who came and did a session called Show Racism the Red Card, and worked with some students.
Casey, tell us about the guys that came in and the impact it had and these kind of gestures of periods of time.
When we do these things in school, I think Sarah would agree, we found it's really important to actually implement these things throughout the school year and not just focus it on 1 month, because then, as you say, it just sort of becomes this thing of, oh, you're doing it because it's Black History Month, whereas, that's not been our goal. It's something that we want to bring into all aspects. And then as for the Show Racism the Red Card, when they came in, that was the first event that I'd ever actually organised in the school. So seeing it come to life.
They were characters, weren't they? They were really
they
big,
were amazing.
Bold.
Yeah. And, they created this safe space where the students felt that they could start to share things with people in the room with them, their peers. I remember a particular boy saying that he's a white boy and he's Muslim, but no one ever thinks that he's Muslim because he's white. So it sort of facilitated a space where the students could, share things about themselves and ask questions. And with everything that goes on in football to do with racism, it was really good that we were able to sort of link it to what was happening in the world at the time.
It's a national initiative showing racism red card. Sarah, how important is it for you to make sure that the lens of EDI is thrown across the whole school on a daily basis, not just on these little periods where we're focusing on a particular form of discrimination?
I think it's really important, but it's really challenging to do that in a school environment. Yeah, I would love it if we could just do this all the time, but we've also got to still go to lessons and do all our academic work. And I think it's about working with what we've got and the structures within school that we've got. So for LGBTQ plus History Week, we chose 2 films that have been quite groundbreaking in that what they've portrayed on screen. So we showed the film Pride to the senior end of the school, and we showed a film called Love, Simon to the junior end. And then we invited students from 2 other local state schools to come along, and they just sat and chatted to each other.
There was an incredible opportunity to look around the room and say, so it's not just me, and have that open conversation to know that they were supported by the school. How can we get that, do you think, Casey, into every lesson? Because people often say history or English. They're obvious areas of looking at different diverse kind of, literature or periods. But you teach DT. So can you get anything into your lessons?
Actually, there are ways that we can fit it in. In design and technology, we do look at designers, and it's about making sure that we're not just looking at a certain type of designer. We're making sure that we're looking at a diverse group of designers. It might not be daily because, of course, in DT, we're not going to be looking at designers every day. But I think bringing those things in where we can, where it's appropriate, I think is really important. It's even things like when staff are making PowerPoints that they show to the class, making sure that in the pictures you've got diverse selection of people that are featuring in that PowerPoint. So as a child, you can see people that look like you. And I think it's just small things like that go such a long way. We do a lot of work with the students, but actually there's a piece of work to be done with teachers. And so Casey's organised for a group to come in the April inset to talk about racial literacy with teachers. We've never done that before. So hopefully all this kind of training will also come out for teachers as well.
Amazing.
I think as well, with the Show Racism the Red Card Day, lots of teachers that were in those sessions with students, when they passed me by afterwards, they said how they learnt so much. When we do the staff training to facilitate that conversation, that will also help help give staff the confidence to perhaps have conversations in lessons that perhaps might be a bit more difficult or out of their comfort zone, and understand, the best way to sort of go about them. So
that's going to be really important. Tell us about REACH.
REACH stands for Race, Ethnicity and Cultural Heritage. The reason why I sort of decided on going for this name, so the REACH Society, instead of the Race Society, is because I wanted to make it inclusive for everyone. I think, when we're speaking about race, when we're speaking about LGBTQ, there's this assumption that is us and them. And I think it's really important that we sort of move past that and, we make these sessions available for everyone, whether people want to come along and share their experiences or whether people want to sort of come along and learn. I think it's really important for everyone to feel that they are included and not excluded.
I look at our teaching staff, our student body, our senior leadership team, our governing body, and I see diversity, but not of all types in all areas. What positive action should the school be taking to actually make sure it represents the children of South West London who are coming to our school, or to encourage more representatives of South West London to grasp the opportunities that are on offer?
Actually, that's a really important next step for us. From my personal experience, when I went to school, I was one of very few. And you walk into a room and you know that you're different. That can be a really challenging time for a child. And I think if they can be in an environment where they're seeing people that look like them or celebrate the same festivals that they do, I think it will have a huge impact. And not just only on those students that are in the minority, but also the other white children, not just being around people that are just like them and making sure that they have a diverse group of friends. I feel like this is a really good opportunity to kind of say, if you are a person of colour, then you are welcome here, and, apply, get involved.
Absolutely. Sarah, what for you would be the biggest thing that KGS could do in terms of taking positive action to show that it really means business?
I think we need to stop being nervous about asking the right questions. I think one of the challenges that Casey and I have talked about is that organisations, not just KGS, but organisations in general, shy away from having the right data. Casey talked about a white student that she's aware of that says, I'm a Muslim. We're not very good at recording that and working within our data. So I think we need to stop being shy about asking people, what is your religion? What do you class as your heritage? I've spoken to some of the students about that, and they would be more than happy to talk about their heritage or their religion or whatever.
Yeah, I think if we are moving forward and asking students and parents to provide this information and that they know it's for a positive reason because we want to make a positive change in our community, I think they'd be more than happy to share.
And we talk as a school about work well and be happy and what that truly means. But part of that is helping each other through. If our children are going to hold positions of responsibility in the future, we want them to do so with the right intentions and the right level of respect for others, with the right values, with the right character. Sarah, we also did a period when we were looking at gender-based violence, and we thought, okay, how do we phrase this? So actually we handed it to the students who said, we want to call it Stand Up, Speak Out. But what was that? Who led it? Who did what? And why is it important?
We've had a group of amazing upper sixth student boys and girls who came and spoke to us about their frustrations about the behaviour of some students and other groups outside of school. So we put together a programme for the full week and we did some staff training. So I did a full staff inset where I used some of their testimonies and I spoke to the staff body about the history of the representation of girls in school and women and what things were happening at the moment. And then the students did a series of hard-hitting but very fair assemblies right across the school, all age appropriate, which were just superbly received. We're doing some follow-up work with students. I've got a group of lower sixth students who are now helping me with that. And then we did a full 360 review of our PSHE programme to make sure that we were teaching consent and respect in every year group, which we are now doing. So that's another sort of focus week that's embedded in the annual timetable that we'll do every year, just to keep that piece of work going.
And it's so important to have these opportunities for the students to present, to work it out, to talk to their peers. I mean, those sixth form girls, and in particular the fourth year girls, and indeed sixth form boys, who stood up to do some talks, to give assemblies, to receive questions, really brave, very positive, but enormously powerful in terms of students talking to other students.
Absolutely. And they got a lot out of it. And actually some of the students wrote to me privately just to say they felt it was really powerful to be able to speak in front of some of their peers.
And that's amazing. And I keep using the word amazing because I think it genuinely is. In terms of what makes KGS slightly more individual, it's not lip service. It's things that we're trying to be meaningful. We're setting up the Kindness Council. And what we mean by that, being kind, being happy, being nice, can be quite trite terms, very quaint, very twee. We mean it. We mean actually you're going to be kind to yourself, you're going to be kind to others, you're going to be kind to the planet. Because if you're not, you're going to be the person that's on the outside. If you're the person that wants to discriminate, then you're going to be in the minority. So having the Kindness Council and bringing the students and the staff into that to say, how do we make our school better in order to make the world better? Because our students are going to go into the world. They are going to be the people holding those top jobs and leading in those industries. To me, that's crucial. And that probably sets us apart because I don't know of anyone else doing that.
We get so educated and we work with the students, and then we forget that parents are not, some of them are not living in this environment. So when I might speak to parents about some issues to do with sexuality or gender, you can see that look of absolute horror on their faces. And so we're going to try and do some training for parents, and we're going to start with issues of gender and sexuality just to support parents to use the right language, to have that right conversation with their children. So parent education is really important.
Because around the dinner table or the breakfast table, so many conversations are shut down because the parents, I don't know what to say. And actually you don't need to know what to say, you just need to listen, because often the children are better informed than we are.
Exactly.
I think people are braver than I would have been at their age, and you two have been incredibly brave today. So thank you for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Kingston Grammar School podcast. If you are interested in learning more about the work being done by Headmaster Stephen Lehec, Sarah, Casey, and all of the other faculty and students in terms of EDI, as well as being brought up to date with upcoming events, brochures, and volunteering opportunities, check out the KGS website at www.kgs.org.uk. The organizing body at KGS is always eager to hear your insight and welcomes suggestions for good speakers who can come into the school during the day and talk about their experiences. Also, as a parent, please consider volunteering with the PSA or becoming part of the governing body, regardless of your race, creed, socioeconomic background, or ability levels. As you can imagine, the next generation of thought leaders is not taking a backseat to this conversation. Join us next week when I catch up with 4 current Kingston Grammar School students who are tackling the tough topics of equality, diversity, and inclusion head-on, helping their peers to find and use their voices. We'd like to know what you're enjoying about the podcast and what topics you'd like to hear more about. Please get in touch by emailing us at podcast@kgs.org.uk. There are numerous places where you can listen, so invite friends, colleagues, and family to access this podcast wherever they hang out, whether it's in the YouTube space, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or SoundCloud. Remind them it's free. And take a moment to rate and review the Kingston Grammar School podcast. It's super quick, and it helps listeners to locate the podcast quickly and easily. Special thanks to our guests in this episode, Headmaster Stephen Lehec, Sarah Humphrey, and Casey Beckford. Thank you also to Allison Williams, Director of Marketing and Admissions at Kingston Grammar School. This has been an Applied Reality production, produced by Shannon Vandermark, sound design by Alex Marcoux.